Title: The Babysitter's Last Shift. Mr. McG was no stranger to babysitting, but this job was different. The listing on babysitters.com offered a ridiculous amount of money to watch a 5-year-old boy in the wealthiest part of town. When he arrived at the mansion, it loomed over him, dark and cold, with no lights on. The parents, pale and gaunt, greeted him inside. "We'll be back by sunrise," the father said in a hollow voice. "Just follow the schedule." The mother handed him a card with 10 strange rules. Rule 1, feed Tommy at 6 p.m, no later. Rule 2, no sugary drinks after 7 p.m. Rule 3, no TV after 8 p.m. Rule 4, Tommy must be in bed by 9 p.m. Rule 5, check the windows at 10 p.m. to make sure they're locked. Rule 6, if Tommy wakes up between 10 p.m. and midnight, comfort him without speaking. Rule 7, turn off all the lights by 11 p.m. Rule 8, do not check under Tommy's bed. Rule 9, stay in your room after midnight. Rule 10, do not stay awake past 1 a.m. McG rolled his eyes at the list. It seemed excessive, but he shrugged it off. He fed Tommy at 6 p.m, tucked him in at 9 p.m, and followed most of the rules. By midnight, the house was unnervingly silent. He glanced at the clock 12:30 a.m. and noticed Rule 10 again, do not stay awake past 1 a.m. "What's the big deal?" McG muttered, deciding to take a shower before bed. When he stepped out, it was 1:10 a.m. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the house into darkness. The temperature dropped and the air felt heavy. Then, from deep inside the house, McG heard a faint scraping sound, like something being dragged across the floor. Heart pounding, he rushed down the hall toward Tommy's room. The hallway seemed to stretch, the shadows moving strangely. The scraping grew louder. He reached Tommy's door, flung it open, and found the bed empty. "Tommy," he whispered. Then he saw a shadowy figure crouched in the corner. At first, he thought it was Tommy, but its limbs were too long, its fingers too sharp, and its eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. The scraping sound came again, this time from under the bed. McG's blood ran cold. He remembered Rule 8, do not check under Tommy's bed. Suddenly, the figure in the corner moved, its limbs jerking unnaturally as it crawled toward him. McG bolted out of the room, his footsteps echoing in the dark. The walls seemed to close in around him as the scraping sound followed, growing louder and faster. He raced down the hallway, threw open the front door, and stumbled into the night air. Gasping for breath, he looked back at the house. It stood eerily still, the door now slowly closing on its own. Shaking, he grabbed his phone and tried calling the parents, but the call wouldn't go through. He checked the babysitters.com listing, it had disappeared, as though it never existed. McG stared at the house, his heart still racing. He hadn't followed the rules. He would never make that mistake again.